Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Travel Monthly Review Show March 2024 edition. Back in their hot seats, Claire Steiner, who will do a little celebration to recognise women in travel, tourism and hospitality industry as part of International Women's Day. Will Plummer, James Clark will both be joining me alongside Claire Steiner for this special episode where we'll be tackling some of the industry news, including late pricing, agent debt and industry associations. The UK government announced a range of measures to keep Britain financially fluid, so we'll analyse what they mean to the industry as part of the spring budget. In our monthly feature, we're joined by Joss Croft, CEO of UKInbound, to look at the trends of the international traveller market to the UK. Plus, we cannot end the show without our quick quiz. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Let's get on with the show.
Travel Market Life.
And welcome back then, Claire Steiner, UK Director of Global Travel and Tourism Partnership. Great to have you back and happy International Women's Day for March.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be back. You've had me back.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I mean, we got to start off with you because obviously a moment to just celebrate and recognise women in travel. Here at Travel Market Life ourselves are very proud that since the launch in 2020, we've been really trying to focus on inclusion and diversity among our guests. And across those 4 years, 27% of our guests have been female. And in the last year, it's risen to 29%. So we're very proud of that achievement. And I know it's still far off, but when we look at some of these numbers, it's quite interesting that, you know, women currently hold 26% of senior management positions in the hospitality, travel and leisure industries there, Claire. So still a long way to go for that 50-50 balance, isn't there?
Yes, there is. But you know what? It's getting better. I genuinely believe it's getting better.
And what do you think are the initiatives that are really sort of helping bring that about and get that sort of confidence for women to really sort of take up those leadership positions and for people to actually open up those leadership positions to a wider diversity of people?
I think first off is awareness, isn't it? I think, you know, there's been a fundamental shift over the last certainly decade or so, whereby governments are introducing price parity, looking at wages, making sure that women are being paid the equivalent from a gender balance perspective. So those sorts of things are forcing companies' hands, particularly the bigger ones. And it's with the bigger ones that we think are there to really help showcase what's going on in the industry. And what I'm loving and we're seeing, and I think we should celebrate in our industry, how many women there are out there doing a fantastic job at a C-suite level with some bigger companies. I think as an industry, we embrace a lot of female entrepreneurs. We have an awful lot of small businesses that are run by women, but we're starting to see some real change at the top, which certainly wasn't there 20 years ago.
Now, I mean, recent years, particularly with the growth of work from home and offices not requiring that mandate for people to come into the office, there's offered that greater flexibility, and that's allowed more women to be able to enter the workforce, particularly at higher level positions. What are some of the risks there or that could actually perhaps hold this back?
I think we've mentioned this in the last couple of podcasts a little bit. I think that there's no doubt that the increase in flexibility in working from home has been a real plus for women, particularly those with caring responsibilities. They can fit it around those. However, as I have said, I believe that there is going to be more of a mandate now for people to come back into the office more. And my concern with that is if they don't maintain that flexibility, that will actually put a huge pressure on the women, and we may then see them starting to rethink about where they are. So I think, yes, coming back into the office, we all know is important from a social perspective and an integration perspective. But actually, for those people who are used to working flexibly, we have to see if we can hopefully maintain that flexibility to allow them the opportunity to continue to shine in the workplace alongside their other responsibilities.
Now, just Claire, another point is that I was reading in The Caterer, the publication just last week, that the biggest, well, this is a quote directly from one of the women that were interviewed, that she says the biggest blockage for growth is that women are not allowed to fail because we have to keep up and be better. Now, that's quite a big challenge, really, for businesses. What can be done, really, to try to get over that particular hurdle?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of nature and nurture here. We've spoken about this before. For me, one of the best things we can do from industry perspective is look for mentors and for male allies within the workplace. I think that allows women to, think differently or be guided in a different way. For many years in recruitment, there's been an old sort of saying that women will only go for a job if they tick all the boxes, or certainly the majority of the boxes in the job advert, whereas men tend to maybe have a bit more confidence and go, well, I know I can do that. So, even if I don't have the experience, I'm sure I can do it, and I'll go for it anyway. But I do think that's changing, and I think that's changing because we're seeing women stand up as role models who are saying, do you know what? Look at me, I've done it, and holding themselves up as case studies. And that, I think, is where we're seeing the real change. We're seeing that change with women who are the role models, but also the men who are supporting them. And for me, that's just as important. So mentors, be they male and female, reverse mentoring, everyone knows that works as well. And having some really great allies that can help support you and give you that confidence to drive you forward. So I think it is slightly changing.
Right, now you just returned from Berlin, and so has our other panelist, James Clark, General Manager at Travel Sue UK. Welcome back. We're now sort of exhausted and sort of sapped of energy. How was ITB?
Hello, Ryan. Hi, Claire. It was fantastic. It was, it's lovely being with so many people from the industry, both meeting new partners and catching up with old partners. So the event as a whole was brilliant. And even though it was slightly dampened at the end due to some industrial action in Germany, thankfully we all made it back. But it was a really positive few days.
Excellent. Now let's bring some energy into the panel, shall we? He's been at home. He's been sat on his desk all week, just going through paperwork. And I believe as well, though, Will, you've got some exciting news to share with us from conversations that you've been having at the Ector Payments Summit.
Yeah. Oh, I'm the energetic one. I've been marked. Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everybody. Yeah, do you know what? It was the first Ector Travel Payments Summit in Belgium earlier this month in Brussels. And it was great. It was bringing together sort of regulators from the European Union, payment experts. And it was a really good conversation. Sort of first one they've ever done. So there was a lot of sort of conversations going on, a lot of different things being spoken about. But it presents a real opportunity to get people together and actually merge together the payments and the sort of regulatory space, the package travel directives, the package travel regulations, which I know isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it's mine. I love it, and it's going to help the consumer. It also then potentially helps the travel companies as well. So, it was great to have that conversation. Was sorry to miss Berlin, but as you said, I've been sat reading paperwork for the last week, and I didn't miss the strikes that you all impacted your travel plans a little bit.
An absolute nightmare when they bring down flights and trains and all that all at once, and it was pretty crazy on the trade show floor, particularly on the Wednesday afternoon as people started to panic about how they were going to get home. I fortunately managed to actually leave first thing in the morning on the Thursday without an issue whatsoever, and then I understand, James, that it got worse throughout the day.
It did, yeah. I was one of those last stragglers leaving the airport late on Thursday evening. So next time I'm going to follow you.
Oh no, I missed the parties. I missed all the parties on Wednesday night. I was in bed by 9:30 because I had to be up at 3:00 in the morning.
And I know our party was good fun, to be fair. Yeah, I don't know if I would. I don't know. I'm trying to weigh off which. I think I'll stay our party. Go later. But.
Yeah, the risk of driving home that next morning was not worth it. So I thought, no, I'll be sensible. But I did hear there was the parties are back in Berlin, which is great to have heard about. Right, we're coming up next with the news.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, in this section, we look at 3 or 4 news stories that have been developing throughout the industry and getting a bit of their take from our panelists. So our 3 stories today will be looking at the lates market, about COVID debts, and then industry associations. So the first one, trade predicts strong lates market, but warns keen pricing will be crucial. Haynes travel owner Dame Irene Hayes told Travel Weekly, demand for holidays combined with extra capacity bodes well for a strong late season this year. What are we seeing on your side then, James?
Dame Irene Hayes is correct. She's spot on. It's going to be a very, very buoyant lates market. We talked about this on a previous podcast, but with the increased asset holders in the market, with flights, extra cruises, there's new markets that have opened up. Swirl that all together, add in a few of the other political and climate issues around the world, makes some markets more popular, leaves capacity in other markets, and ultimately they've got to be filled. People want bums on seats, and they also want people on cruises, and they want people in beds in hotels. So what that all creates is a very strong lates market. It's probably one of the strongest lates markets I've seen, and the deals are phenomenal. They're incredible.
No, I mean, is this not undermining pricing within the marketplace if you're sort of like massively dropping the price of a holiday or a package or whatever? Because, someone would have bought it at one price and then 3 months later they buy it significantly discounted?
Yes and no. So if you're Mr. Sensible, like a Will here, who books his holidays, 2 years in advance, he'd rather pay a slight premium so he can get his date and his seat on the plane and the right hotel room, etc. So he's happy to pay a premium for that. But if you're flexible, like maybe Claire or I, and last minute want to be a bit of an opportunist, then next week we could be booking a very, very good quality holiday at a much lower price than maybe what Will would have paid it for.
I mean, we were talking just a couple of episodes ago about the fact that it had been really quite a buoyant January. The markets performed better than we'd expected them to. And we were obviously a talk about this consumer spend and the fact that it isn't really affecting travel. But this sort of indicates that potentially there is quite a number of families that are really holding out for those bargains, and the cost of living. And obviously that the sort of issue around sort of finances around the UK is tightening that much more. Is there more of a marketing ploy for some companies that they might just play to that?
I don't think so. Most companies would try to avoid creating their own lates market. Ultimately, what everyone wants to do is have their inventory and their assets sold as quick as possible. But what we are seeing in the market, and along with lots of other businesses have reported the same, which is February has been outperforming January, which is a very unusual trend. And I spoke to a lot of people in ITB in Berlin who shared that same stat, that they've actually seen a stronger performance so far in February. Potentially that might be because of post-payday, which was obviously very late in January. So performance has been strong in February. So let's see how that goes.
I was going to ask James a question, if I may, Ryan, and he doesn't know me well enough because I would wait for the deal, if I'm quite honest. I think the danger with this lates market is that then going into 25, that's going to be the expectations, and that's actually going to put a lot of pressure on businesses in terms of getting that cash in, getting those bookings in for the early season, and everyone's going to wait for the lates. I mean, how do you see that? Do you not see, with the pressures I think we've all recognised and doom and gloom here constantly harping back to, that actually it will have an effect going into next year? So this year, great, buoyant, provided price is good, it's great, but it's a real danger for the industry.
It is. Your assumption is correct, because if we look back to 2018, 2019, when the last lates market was really, really strong, what that few years over COVID did was actually reset. And as everyone came out of COVID, everyone wanted to secure their holidays far in advance because they knew where they wanted to go. They wanted just to book. So it went kind of back to this old routine of everyone booking as far in advance as possible and there being very little lates market. But because of the amount of capacity in the market and because of the deals, people now, consumers alike, are sitting there saying, well, these prices continue to go down. And if you're sat there watching maybe a cruise, and it's on a website and it's getting reduced, or you're seeing airfares that are very reasonable in peak season. You're thinking if they're reasonable now, they're going to probably even get cheaper because it's the opposite effect. So you are right in your assumption, and it could fuel kind of a bad trend for the industry because ultimately people want to sell their stock as quick as possible in the market so they can focus on the other areas.
Excellent. Now let's just have a question to you guys. What's the latest foreign holiday trip you've ever booked?
I think for me, bear in mind I've been in the industry, I have booked a holiday probably about 10 days out.
Okay, not as late as I was expecting.
And I can tell you how cheap it was because I was working for the tour operator at the time and I bought my return airfare for £79 return. That included bags and flights to Egypt. And I got my hotel for £110.
Wow, how long ago was that?
This was quite a while ago, but yeah. So that was the cheapest deal I've ever booked. But that was me getting obviously net rates in the market. But yeah, £79 to Sharm el-Sheikh return.
Oh, amazing. Claire, how about you? I mean, you're quite a traveller.
I could definitely beat that, but mine's going back a long time when I was in my late teens, and myself and a couple of girlfriends booked the day before we flew out. So we literally did a 24-hour turnaround. That was that, and we were so lucky because we booked late. I remember it so clearly. We went to Greece, we went to this island, and because we booked late, we weren't put in the big hotel with all the balconies. We were given this little private residence that they have for late people. So we ended up with this beautiful little private residence, and we booked at about half the cost of everybody else who was in the hotel down the road. So we were very
fabulous.
But that was a one-off, I have to say.
Will, I mean, are you going to prove James wrong?
I'm not quite sure that I did it for price reasons, but we booked February half term. We took the family to Paris and we booked 4 days before. Just hotel, we got a good deal. Eurostar, not so. It really, I'm not sure maybe I'm going to have to come back on what I said before. I'm not sure I necessarily book early, but I'm not sure I book late based on price early. It's more convenience and what's going on in my life and what I can fit in. So yeah, I think different people have got different attitudes for it, but I think we need both markets, and too much late isn't good either.
I mean, it's actually one thing I want to try and do this year if I can, and actually book a last minute holiday, like literally right down to the bone. So let's see if it works out, and I'll tell you how it goes.
There's your challenge.
It's my challenge for this year. Right, okay, next story. Nearly half of Advantage agents are still paying off COVID debts. Nearly half of independent agents still have COVID-related debts, and almost a third say high interest rates are affecting their businesses, according to a survey by the Advantage Travel Partnership members. This is quite a concern. We're 4 years since the start of the pandemic now, believe it or not. That's moved on very fast. But people still massively weighted by the cost of the implications that came with it. Obviously, we've been trying to get the market moving. And the question is, were people selling off holidays just too cheap in order to get the bookings coming in 2020, 2021, which has then had on this knock-on effect? Are we now at a point where there is too much capacity, and therefore travel agents are going to have to continually try to sell their holidays and just make a meager profit, and that then have an impact on them being able to pay off their debts? It's going to be an issue, isn't it, for the industry? If all these travel agents are going to have so much money that they got to pay back and may not. I mean, I know we're already seeing quite a number of small businesses massively struggling this year, and as a result of the fact that people are cutting back so much in their expenditure.
Yep, here comes the cynic on it. I think what happened after COVID was, to be honest, some travel businesses that perhaps shouldn't have survived, if I'm being really harsh, were able to because of the bookings, because of the volume of the bookings that came in. And we didn't see quite the level of failures that I think I certainly, for one, expected. And now, we've all acknowledged the last year has been brilliant. The bookings are coming in. That's fantastic. I'm actually surprised that it's so high, but that's just Advantage. You've got lots of other agents and operators that have been affected. If we're now talking about, this massive late market that's then, discounting rather all these packages, we've got higher interest rates, we've got higher costs. I can see the potential for real pressure coming in later this year. And I think that is greatly concerning for the industry and something that needs looking at very quickly.
Okay, over to the third story then. New Global Travel Tech Association launch. So this is made up of Amadeus, Booking.com, eDreams, Expedia, Skyscanner, Travelport, which it brings all these guys together as a way for them to empower. They're meant to be empowering travelers by enabling unparalleled transparency, competition, and choice in the travel industry, and actually have global policy decisions on these. Now, this is also meant to help as part of sort of the technology infrastructure and an ecosystem of the industry that companies can access non-discriminatory access to data for intermediaries, digital platform issues, including data privacy and fair digital taxation, as well as regulatory sustainability issues. I mean, have you ever worked within these travel associations? Is this just, do you think, a commercial ploy to make it look like, you know, these are the big boys all working together and you need to be in this league in order to play part of it? Or do you think that there is actually some sentiment behind industry associations like these?
So from my perspective, I think the proof's now going to be in the pudding, because you've got, like you said, some of the biggest stakeholders around the table. So let's see how they deal with the first challenge along the road. I've got nothing against them forming this alliance in a sense and creating a group of probably the most powerful tech businesses in the travel industry. But they talk, you know, openly in this comment is around to not just how they deal with some of the challenges, but also if a crisis was to occur in the industry, how would they work together? So really for me, it's let's not judge them before they're able to show us what they're able to deliver as a united team. But there are lots of groups and associations in the industry who do a lot of good. So let's just hope they're going to join that list.
Are there any particular associations, James, that you guys are part of, a couple that you feel, you know, really add a lot of value to the industry?
Yeah, from our perspective, there's Parter, there's Clear. We are soon to be joining another association, which I'm going to stay tight-lipped about, but that will be coming out hopefully on our next podcast. But yeah, I think all of these bring a huge worth to the industry. You know, so if you look at some of the largest associations, their aims are always to try to be very good middlemen and matchmakers. And I think that's where you get the most worth out of it. I've always said that in any kind of association that we join, that not only do we want to bring something to the table, but ultimately you also want to walk away with a new alliance or a new friendship or a new business connection. So for me, I'm a big advocate of these.
Now, Will, I know you're involved in quite a few as well, aren't you, associations? Where is the value that you look for when identifying the ones that you will play a part of?
I think it's to do largely with their member base for us. And I think certainly, you know, some of the ones that James has mentioned, we're also members of, and that connection, meeting people, shared experiences, etc., is absolutely vital, and it's part of what makes up the travel industry. I think, as James said, the proof is in the pudding for this one. The fact its technology is slightly different from a Parter or a Lata or a Clear, you know, this is actually, in the way the industry is going, the way data is playing such an important part in everything that we do. Yeah, I don't know where this one's going to go, because we're talking a lot of big names here who control a lot of the market. How inclusive are they going to be of other people? And how inclusive are they going to be in terms of innovation, or is that going to be a block to a lot of things? There is actually a good example in the tours and activity space. It's Octo, which I think is Open Connectivity Travel Organization. And where they've worked really hard in that is actually standardizing APIs, documentation, etc., with these reservation platforms to simplify the sort of integration to the OTAs and get that distribution there. And that's been very successful, but that's a smaller part of the market. So I welcome it from the perspective that I think organizations have a lot of value in terms of helping with what you said, in their spiel, the regulatory side of things, the simplification, the taxation. Being a little bit cynical, that seems to be the theme. I just wonder how inclusive, because there are a lot of wonderful small, medium technology companies out there who've got probably more innovation because they've got the ability to do it. Are they going to be open to being inclusive of it? And that remains to be seen.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the spring budget. Big announcement in election year for the UK. How much it affects things internationally, I guess, may yet to be seen. But there was a few items on here that related directly to the travel, tourism and hospitality market. But then there are also some that really help towards people and businesses in general. So really just focusing in then, firstly, on the actual industry side of things. We had the air passenger duty. Now, he announced an increase in airfares for business class travellers to raise some revenue. Then holiday lets, they completely got rid of the Furnished Holiday Let scheme, which will end in April 2025, which really helps in regards to mortgage interest rates not being deductible as it previously was, as well as the cost of furnishings for the property not being tax deductible as well. In addition, they are abolishing the multiple dwelling relief, which could in fact have a major impact on those companies that have been looking at growing their portfolio and buying multiple properties. And then finally, freezing alcohol duty, which was due to end in August, but this will continue just for another year until February 2025. But let's see how much that will actually benefit the pubs and clubs and hospitality across the UK. So those three things, where do you stand, particularly within the travel side? How do you see that? Claire, I mean, are you a business class traveller? Is it going to affect you paying a little bit higher premium prices there?
And I don't often turn left, I have to say. Listen, I think, and I know the other two will have a much more in-depth, I guess, viewpoint on this, but it's just more tax, isn't it? I mean, this seems to be just this stealth tax of the government, and they're just increasing it all the time. And it feels like a bit like low-hanging fruit to me. So it's not going to affect me hugely because I don't tend to travel business class. But, I think that's one of the things that probably people aren't very happy about, if I'm absolutely honest.
Oh, I mean, wine and beer isn't going to be as expensive as they were perhaps expecting it to be. So that's one good thing, though, isn't it? We can still have our parties at a reasonable budget.
Absolutely. And the hospitality industry, I do think, are quite pleased with that. I think that's meant quite a bit to them, particularly as they are, like we all are, though. We're talking about struggling coming out of the pandemic. Hospitality are really still struggling in that respect. So anything that helps them is a good thing, even if it is just for another year.
Right, though. So, James, what's your thoughts here? Clive Ratton of BTA said, contrary to common misconceptions, business travel is not just for the wealthy. This tax will hinder growth for small and medium enterprises through limiting international collaboration opportunities.
So I actually do have quite a strong view on this one. And I actually think the increase in APD was a terrible move. It's the highest aviation tax in the world that we are faced here in the UK with. It's also one that's gone after, it's low-hanging fruit, like Claire said. So they've gone after an easy win, but actually it's giving one hand, taking the other, and actually it's the wrong audience to be taken from, because it ultimately means if it's from a business, they're going to have to try to find those costs somewhere else, which then ultimately comes back to the consumer. So it goes all the way back round to Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the street. And the other area that I feel that it's actually affecting is that we're an aging population, and so from what we look at from us at Travel Zoo, is that a large proportion of our audience who are retirees, who are going on those longer haul holidays, who are traveling in business class, who are going to say, look, this is a once in a lifetime trip. Some of these increasing tax per seat can go up to about £200 or £300 extra. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. We're not talking about a few pound here. £200 or £300 more per person is a huge amount. Now, why are we going after the wrong people here who are maybe doing that once in a lifetime trip? You know, there are so many other areas we could have gone after. So I'm disappointed by that. I think that was a low blow for the industry. On the plus side, if we are just to look at very quickly about not increasing the surcharge to alcohol, I think that will help the leisure industry in the UK, hopefully this summer, because ultimately they've gone through a really tough time in the last few years. And I think that would have been a low blow for them had there been a 3 or 4p increase, because again, they're going to have to pass out onto the consumer. So thankfully that's been kept flat.
I'm going to say, I mean, even the British Institute of Innkeeping has warned the freeze may not be enough to help struggling landlords who had seen a huge inflation in every other area of the business. And, you know, it is an industry that is particularly struggling right now. We're seeing clubs obviously close all across the country. We just don't have the young people going out as much as they used to. That dynamism has massively changed, particularly in the nightlife in towns. One of the interesting areas I particularly find is holiday lets. I think as a result of this, and people can't cash in on their mortgage interest rates and, you know, refurnish their property and be able to get that claim back, we're going to see a lot less Airbnbs on the market. I think a lot more people are going to be massively pulling out of that because it's just not affordable. We've seen it with the buy-to-let. I was a buy-to-let landlord. Painful. It's so painful now to be a buy-to-let landlord with the fact that you can't actually, you know, make as much claim for tax relief as possible, and you've got loads of licenses that you need to pay for now. I just see that the Airbnb market's next. Will, when it comes to this area, then within the budget, what's your thoughts?
Initially, I thought, oh, there's sort of not much here, but the more I've reflected on it, the more I don't think it's good for the UK travel industry. Both to your point, it's in terms of, you know, inbound and the ability for people, or the willingness to Airbnb and do the short-term rental side of things. But a little bit, to James's point around that, you know, the air passenger duty, I think I saw one number which was for a long-haul premium economy, it went from about £25 to £225. And okay, we can talk about sustainability, you know, the responsibility of airlines to you know, charge more for these business class passengers to try and meet their net zero. That's a different conversation altogether. I think what this says is basically we're going to make it really hard for the UK to be the center of sort of, I don't know, global travel. You know, if you think most of the airlines' profitability is made up of turning left, and that is the money that is probably needed to get, you know, sustainability into that. You know, it's counterintuitive, and it's really not good for the UK travel industry. To James's point, you're penalising the wrong people. Okay, that's fine. If the goal was to sort of increase the inbound market, well, then you're then taking with the other hand on the sort of short-term rental market as well. So I don't quite see it. Maybe the travel industry is not the big vote winner, so we shouldn't worry about that. But the freeze on the alcohol is probably a bigger winner. National insurance, which I'm sure Claire's got more thoughts about, is again probably that does benefit us as an industry, but actually looking outwardly, I don't think it's as positive as I think it was. I think it's bad for UK tourism.
I mean, it's interesting. I don't think he actually listened to businesses because the government refused to scrap the tourist tax, and they didn't make any amendments to the VAT for hospitality, which is the second highest across Europe, which is just ridiculous. But looking at the employee and general business, so Claire, 2% cut in national insurance, an increase in the VAT threshold from 85 to 90k from April, and an increase in threshold for child benefits.
Yes, it can only be good. I mean, I think, listen, businesses and individuals are going to be much happier with that. It means more money in their pockets, particularly, I think, for parents. I think the child benefit, anything we can do to support our parents, goes back to what we were saying about, you know, helping people in the workplace, helping mums in the workplace, all these things come together. Personally, I'm very happy as well. So I know my clients will use this as a positive. See this as a positive for helping with just, I guess, the well, it was all about the cash flow, isn't it? But yeah, keeping people happy. So I think those are wins. I think a lot more could be done. I mean, I thought it was a bit of a blur budget myself. I didn't think there was anything that made me jump up and down and go woohoo. Though I was pleased to see the NI changes. That was probably one of the few things that brought a smile to my face.
I mean, I just think I roll my eyes again and think this VAT threshold is barely gone up, especially in regards to the whole cost of inflation. You know, how many people within the travel and tourism and hospitality industries that are self-employed, or they've got a small business that they run seasonally, and they really are, and you have to buy so much in. You don't make much. But you might have a lot of revenue coming in, but where's the profit sometimes in a lot of that? And that is the biggest issue that I think I had, that Conservatives are massively out of touch for a government that is meant to be very much in touch with business and commerce. I just wish that we'd seen that VAT threshold go up in terms that are more related to inflation, and actually respect and honor, the hard work that business people do, and the reasons why, people actually run businesses. But we are where we are. I say we are one of the lowest national insurance since they dropped that for the second time over the course of the year. So I say employees at least are going to be somewhat better off, even though it may even out across inflationary terms as well. Right. As I say, that has been the spring budget. I mean, it's come and gone. I guess we'll get, see how that actually plays out during the course of this year and what impact that actually has on the election. So coming up then, we have an interview with Joss Croft, the CEO of UKInbound, to talk about the inbound trends and what he's seeing. I start off by asking him about the developments that he's witnessing in the market.
Travel Market Life.
So good news, I guess, is that we're moving from recovery into growth, definitely. But we're probably lagging slightly behind our competitors. Last year was a very strong year, and of course you've got to remember that, of course, inbound tourism, particularly inbound tourism, was the first hit by the pandemic, probably the deepest hit by the pandemic, and potentially also one of the last to come out of the pandemic, because we had all of those restrictions in terms of how people could travel. But actually, huge pent-up demand. And 23 was a pretty good year, lagging slightly behind 2019 still. And even as we move into 2024, we're still not quite going to be there in terms of the spend compared with 2019 in real terms. But of course, there's an inflationary effect there. We're starting to see visitors come back and bring in their foreign exchange, which makes us the second largest service export industry. So really important, bringing in that foreign currency to the UK.
Really interesting. I mean, let's look at the source markets. Where are you seeing things for 2024?
Yeah, so the USA market is absolutely the standout market for the UK at the moment. North America as a whole, Canada, of course, important market. But the USA was really, really very, very strong for us. Now, a lot of that was because people in the States, when they weren't able to travel over the pandemic years, they were issued with what's called future travel credits. So they've been able to use those. But don't forget, of course, that the USA is our number one market. It's worth more to the UK economy, and more visitors come to the UK than from any other market. Europe, probably a little bit slower than we'd have liked. And again, we've still not really quite seen the Germans and the French that make up the number 2 and number 3 markets in terms of volume. We've not had that lift from the air capacity into the UK. That is coming back. China was our second most valuable market, not in terms of visitor numbers, but in terms of the amount of money that they spent in 2019. That's been a little bit slow. And of course, some of that is, as I say, to do with capacity. It's also the fact that British Airlines certainly can't fly over Russian airspace. But we're seeing a really strong recovery from China this year. I think where we're perhaps missing out a little bit is obviously shopping as a key motivator for a travel out of China. But of course, we saw the removal of tax-free shopping for visitors into the UK as of 2020. So overall, I think we're looking for another really positive year out of the States. That continues, strong demand there. Wider GDP growth in the UK is likely to be at about 0.6% this year. Inbound tourism is running at 4% in real terms, 7% in nominal terms. So really, inbound tourism is a real driver for the economy. And I think taking a slightly different approach with governments, having had 2-3 very, very difficult years, and obviously a lot of pushing government to support the industry, I think we're now in a position to turn around to government to say that actually we can be one of the solutions for some of the problems that the UK economy faces.
I mean, there are obviously challenges for inbound tourism. What ways are you sort of looking at those challenges and addressing those, and how can we start to alleviate those and start to get more money coming in, or more spend really?
And we identified what some of the biggest barriers to growth were, and the first one, you're absolutely right. Rising costs. 63% of our members saying that staffing costs, inflation, energy costs were really acting as a drag on their ability to drive profit. And that's the key bit, because whilst the spend is coming through, because there have been huge cost rises, that's really putting pressure on people's margins. Staff recruitment and retention, 45% of members saying that is a big barrier to growth as well. So, we've got those supply side challenges. On the demand side, I mean, funnily enough, there really is still strong demand. And that's in spite of everything, because some of the government policies that we've got at the moment in terms of the visa costs have gone up, went up very recently. UK, we still have very high levels of air passenger duty. Of course, VAT at 20% is not variegated like it is in other European countries. In fact, actually, VAT, we have the highest rate of VAT in Europe, apart from in Denmark, on accommodation. And all tourism is kind of defined by means, money, and motivation. So have people got the ability to travel here? We talked about, lack of air capacity out of Asia, for example. We've also got, we still haven't been able to build additional runways, whilst the rest of the world cracks on and builds more runways to build more capacity into the system. You look at the motivation, actually, we've had the sad passing of Her Majesty the Queen, but that put us onto the front pages of every newspaper around the world. But again, we've just got to be careful. Our reputation on welcome is perhaps not quite what it was. Certainly after the 2012 games, we were about 11th in terms of world rankings on welcome. We're now down to 19th. So we've got to make sure that when the visitors do come, that we're giving them a fantastic experience, memorable experiences that they can go back and tell their friends and family about. You look at those which parts of the country are seeing that real growth, and the fact that Scotland is doing so well, some of that is probably down to the fact that Scottish businesses, inbound businesses, did receive a lot of support that maybe English businesses didn't receive, and that's probably allowed them to go out and prospect for more business as well.
I wanted to go back to a point that you mentioned, and I'd like us to just extrapolate that a little bit more. This thing called the welcome. You say that we've slid in the scales there from 11th to 19th over the last 10 or 12 years. Could you describe to us what we mean by welcome, and what is expected by guests to the UK?
Okay, so welcome is one of the most critical parts of the offering. We know that when people travel, the number one is whether they get value for money, and the number two is whether they feel that whether they're going to be welcomed or not. We also know from the Civil Aviation Authority, they undertook a study a couple of years ago that demonstrated that those people who do feel welcome in a destination are more than twice as likely to recommend it to their friends and family as those who don't. So welcome is an absolutely key part of the modern traveller's offering. We have a bit of a reputation for being a bit stiff upper lip and a little bit unfriendly anyway. But really, it's absolutely critical because, as I say, word of mouth is such a key form of anyone's marketing channels. It's the cheapest one. You get it right, people will tell their friends and family, and they will come back again. And it's, some of the things that within that kind of welcome is we're not necessarily very strong at it. Language skills, for example. And again, Ryan, you and I were having a chat before we started the pod, actually. But, a lot of Brits don't speak those languages. It's not enforced that people have to learn a modern language these days. And people, particularly modern day travelers, if you're kind of a premium destination, which the UK is, we're not cheap and cheerful. We are good value, but we're not the cheapest destination. We need to really be making sure that those visitors receive the best possible experience that they can in the UK. And that might mean being able to speak their language when they arrive on your doorstep. There's a secondary issue, of course, that a lot of my members are actually contracting internationally as well. And they need languages to be able to contract in German, in Spanish, in Italian. And of course, finding those workers that have the languages in the UK is a real challenge as well. So welcome plays a really key part in people, how they experience the UK. We know that it's a key driver for business as well. So we've got to get it right.
Now, before we do go, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the UKInbound as an organisation, and really for our listeners, who should consider being a member and why, please, Josh?
Sure. So we were established in the late 1970s as the British Incoming Tour Operators Association, and the tour operators, these are destination management companies. They package up the UK and they then sell it over to businesses overseas. They handle about 35% of all the travellers that come to the United Kingdom use a DMC. So we have about 120 of those within our membership, and then we have a further about 280 businesses who want to work with tour operators. And we really offer sort of 2 or 3 areas. The first of which is we offer that connectivity between operators, buyers, and the suppliers, attractions, hoteliers, for them to meet and do business. Being able to put the two together is a really important part of our work. The second part of our work is making sure that everyone's aware of the issues. So being at that kind of trusted source of information is really important for our members. Third area is kind of the lobbying and the advocacy, acting as the voice for inbound tourism. So making sure that our voice is heard. We've been able to influence government policy on things like those ID cards. We're working very closely around things like the ETAs. We'd like to see transit passengers excluded from the electronic travel authorizations that will be coming in later on this year. And also, of course, we like to have a little bit of fun into the bargain as well, Ryan.
Excellent. Now, I believe that you might be able to participate in some of that fun at the annual convention, which is actually being hosted in Liverpool this year on the 25th and 26th of September. What can we expect, and what are the key talking points?
We will have a keynote speaker. Last year, we had a kind of eminent sports psychologist, Jamil Qureshi, talking to people about how they can improve their performance. We're just finalising our keynote speaker for this year. We will hear insights from our old friend David Edwards from Scattered Cloud, who kind of brings kind of data into real insight, actionable insights. We'll have a networking evening, networking opportunities across the 3 days. We'll have a destination showcase. One of the key things for us is that we actually, on the Thursday, we have a full day B2B. So that allows kind of speed dating across a desk between a buyer and a supplier. And then on the Thursday evening, we go into a gala dinner and awards ceremony, the Awards for Excellence, which recognises excellence within our sector. We hope it will be the, having built on last year, which was our biggest attended event in Belfast, we're very hopeful that we'll be able to bust those numbers for this year as well.
Excellent, Josh. Well, good luck with that. I hope it all goes well, and look forward to having follow-up conversations throughout this year. But thanks ever so much for joining me on this podcast today.
It's been my pleasure, Ryan. Thanks.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, here we are for the quick quiz, a best of 5, where our panelists are challenged on their industry knowledge. Okay, they've all got some sort of noisemaker. Let's hear them. Starting off with Will, this week has a...
Can you hear that, right?
That's really bad.
That's not coming
That's
through.
good, though. That's good. Ryan, let's not give him any more advantage, okay?
I can't turn it off now.
Have you not got a buzzer like Claire had last week?
No, can't find it. I'll just clap my hands.
Oh, we had a clapper last week. Okay,
I
right.
can't turn it off.
Claire. The
Brilliant.
tiniest bell I've ever seen in the world. That's unbelievable, but makes a fantastic sound, though. You can actually hear it.
I miss my bell.
And James.
To the biggest bell, the Travel Zoo famous bell.
There we are. It's more like a gong the way that sounds in compared to Claire, but absolutely wonderful. I've not seen anything that big either, James. So great. So Claire, James and Will, are we ready for the quick quiz? Here we go. Geography to start off with. China shares the world's longest land border with what country? Will.
Russia.
No.
Damn it.
You're out. Do you want to steal the point, Claire or James? 3, 2, 1.
Is it India?
No, it's Mongolia with 4,677 kilometers. Nearly 1,000 kilometers different to Russia, actually. Okay, second attraction. The air distance between Las Vegas and the Grand Canyon's West Rim is approximately 130 miles. How long does it take to fly between the two in a helicopter? James.
35 minutes.
35. Claire.
20.
Thank you. Go on then, Will.
12.
No, 40 to 45 minutes. So James wins that one. Good one. Well done, James. There you are. Now you can start planning your trip to Las Vegas, you see. Right, airlines. What is the oldest international airline still in operation today?
Well,
Yes.
Lufthansa.
No.
Oh, that's a good guess.
Yes, Claire.
I'm gonna tell you Cathay Pacific.
No. James, do you want to have a guess at this one?
I'm going to go with KLM.
Yes, KLM it is. Well done.
Well done.
That was set up in 1919, just beating Qantas to 1920. So well done. Okay, James in the lead with 2 points. We move on to history. In 1970, Bernard Sado invented what is today a must-have travel accessory. What was it? I can give you a clue.
What was the date? Sorry.
1970.
I'm going to take a guess.
Go on then.
Was it an inflatable neck collar?
No.
Oh, phew.
I'm gonna get. How about a wheelie suitcase?
Yes, Claire.
Oh,
well done. That is it.
it.
Yes. They used to say the clue would have given it away. He was president of the US Luggage Corporation.
Yeah, should have got that.
Right, final question then, where we have James with 2 points, Claire with 1. Could possibly Claire come in and steal this from James? Destination question. Which country has the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites?
Well,
Yes.
India.
No. Claire?
Greece.
No.
Go on then.
He's going to steal it. Is he going to steal it now with 3? Go on, James.
It's not the UK, is it?
No.
Oh.
I thought you were going to get close there when Claire mentioned Greece.
Oh, Turkey.
Italy.
Italy.
Oh.
Italy with 58.
That might have been a red herring.
Sites. There we are. Okay, well done, James. Congratulations.
Thank you. Can we just have a quick recap? How many points did Will get? Just can we have a quick recap?
Sorry, can we just have a quick recap? How many times have I won this quiz?
Yeah. Will has won 2 games to James's 1.
I mean, I'm lost without my bell, but I'll be back.
That's
Don't
the reason
worry.
why, isn't it? You
It's
didn't have your
exactly. The
bell.
kids have lost the bell.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you ever so much. It's been wonderful having you back here again for our March edition. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks, Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, thanks. Love you.
Great to
Thanks.
see you. Catch you next time then.
Bye.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.